I want to talk to you this morning about what's happening with ACICS, what happened last week with the senior designated official and ACICS's response. How many are veterans in here? Okay, so some of you got an email last week from the VA that we're going to talk about and clarify that, and then I'll take questions and answers from you. Let's see if I can do this right. I know I told Doug that I probably wouldn't have slides this morning, but I do. That's not working. Again, what we're going to discuss today is based on what we know today. I'm only going to give you what we know to be factual. We're not going to get into any speculation or anything that would give you any misinformation. I only want to give you the factual information as we know it right now. Last Thursday, ACICS received notification from the Department of Education that the senior designated official had decided to agree with Acics and deny re-recognition for ACICS. Now, it's not the outcome that we wanted, but it's the outcome that we have. On Friday, ACICS delivered its notice of appeal to the Secretary of Education, which then basically stopped the derecognition of ACICS until ACICS files the appeal and a ruling comes from the Secretary of Education. ACICS's appeal is due to the Secretary on or before the 22nd of October, and then Secretary King gets to rule on that appeal, but there is an undetermined amount of time that he has to do it. There's nothing that says he's got to do it in 10 days, 30 days, whatever. He has made no indication whatsoever of how long he's going to take to rule on the appeal. I think in part, having been through these types of proceedings before, in part it's going to depend on how big the appeal is and how much detail ACICS puts into the appeal. But there's no way of saying that's how long it's going to take for him to come up with his ruling. At least until the Secretary of Education rules, ACICS is still a recognized national accreditor, and this 18-month clock we've talked about, this 18-month clock that some of you have heard and read about, has not started yet. So, worst case scenario, Secretary King rules against ACICS. The 18-month clock will start then. However, ACICS can and has indicated it will go into federal court to obtain an injunction against the Secretary of Education that would stop the clock. Assuming that the federal court will grant this injunction, ACICS then can proceed with suing the Secretary of Education and have the whole matter of ACICS versus the Department of Ed heard in federal court, and we have absolutely no idea how long that will take. Assuming that the ACICS can obtain an injunction against the Secretary of Education, that would stop the clock again until the courts finally decide. So right now, the clock hasn't started. The clock can potentially start, but no sooner than probably October 22nd, when ACICS files its appeal, if the Secretary decides to act quickly without reading the appeal. It could be somewhere down the road, but in any event, ACICS has already indicated that it will sue the Secretary of Education if the Secretary's ruling goes against them. This is not that unusual a process. Those of you who follow the news know that when the Secretary of Health and Human Services came out with rulings having to do with the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. Various states went into court and obtained injunctions against the Secretary in order to stop the enforcement. So it's not unusual for the federal courts to step in and halt administrative processes until the federal courts fully hear the case. What that means down the road, I have no idea. All we can do is take a look at the past as to give us some idea of what might happen. But as far as we know today, the facts are the clock has not started. ACICS is still a recognized national creditor. It has until the 22nd of October to provide its appeal information to the Secretary of Education, and the Secretary of Education then has an indeterminate amount of time with which to make his ruling. So what happens to Coleman University in all of this? Those of you who are on Title IV funds, those are Pell Grants, subsidized and unsubsidized student loans, you'll continue to receive financial aid during the 18-month grace period, which hasn't started yet. Veterans, those of you who are on GI Bill, will continue to receive your financial aid and housing during this 18-month grace period, which hasn't started yet. Coleman University remains a candidate for accreditation with WASC, the Senior Commission. Our pre-accreditation status is not affected by any ruling having to do with ACICS. So, has the 18-month clock started yet?
No.
I love feedback. Last week, on Friday, I know that because some of the veterans have sent me copies of the email, and I wanted to extract some paragraphs from it and comment on them. The email itself stated in the beginning, not really the first paragraph, but like the second or third paragraph, that you may have seen or heard that the Department of Education has terminated ACICS's recognition as a nationally accredited agency because of scrutiny from the Department of Education, et cetera, et cetera. While that was technically true for a couple of hours, I think the VA jumped the gun in sending out the email. And that's my personal opinion. ACICS recognition has not yet been terminated. If you stopped reading the email there, that would have given you enough agita for the weekend. But you have to read down further. And further down in that email, it has a paragraph that starts, what is the current status? And it says, if ACICS does not appeal to the Secretary of Education, or if the appeal is taken but the Secretary of Education concurs with the negative decision, ACICS will lose federal recognition. Well, we know by the time this email went out, they'd already filed the notice of appeal with the Secretary of Education. So what? The 18-month clock has not started. Then, and I put this in bold and italics at the bottom, where they correctly said at the bottom of this paragraph, during the entire appeal process, ACICS would remain a recognized accrediting body, and there would be no impact on veteran benefits. Further down, the last section of the email was what you should do. And it starts out by saying, at this point, nothing changes for you, and again, I put the bold and italics of mine, at least the next 18 months. It's really right now is at least the next 19 months because they filed. But I just want those three particular paragraphs, I just want to make sure that the veterans are at least clear about those paragraphs, especially if you didn't read beyond those first three. Now, I know I showed you this last time, and essentially that's it. I mean, we're going to have graduation on Saturday. we'll be conferring degrees for those who have completed in this term or previous ones. At this point, just keep making steady progress to your degree. And I think that's what you really need to do. We know that we have the unfortunate situation with students over at ITT, the veteran students especially, who are now going through a period where they're going to go for a month without their housing allowance. So when you stop going to school, your housing allowance shuts off. And you also only have, 36 months, I believe it is, to use your benefits. So keep moving forward, keep working towards your degree. We're doing what we can on our side. The board is looking at our alternatives, should we need them. And basically, what we're trying to do is keep moving forward, stay accredited, and be able to confer your degrees. So that's the basic facts for this morning. Unfortunately, facts are usually very terse and don't take up a lot of time. So it gives us plenty of time for questions and answers. No questions? That's not what my emails were saying over the weekend.
Is it true that the ebook's not going to be free anymore?
Excuse me?
I know my question is not related to the
Sure.
whole meeting, but I've heard that the ebook's not going to be free anymore. Is that something true?
You were paying for them. You were paying that as part of your tuition fee. As of October, we've moved to allowing students to basically go out and buy their ebooks, from whatever source they want to, as long as it matches with the syllabus. Some students have told us they can do it cheaper on their own. So this is basically giving students choice.
Oh.
Other questions? Yes.
Is the school going for ACIS or WAS? Or like, if the school's going for WAS, then why do we care about ACIS? Why do we give a crap about it? Is it a fallback or?
Well, we've been accredited by ACICS since 1967, so we have history and legacy with them. When you're changing accreditors, there's never anything guaranteed. So there's, when they say right in the candidacy letter, candidacy is not a guarantee of accreditation. So we basically have to be prudent and make sure that we've got different risks and exposures covered.
Okay.
Same reason you buy car insurance. I mean, it's risk management. Yes?
Now, what would happen after, let's say, the 18-month grace period started and it ended? Does that mean that you would not get your degree if you came after that 18-month grace period if you were not accredited? Would that mean that our education would be affected by that if we fell after an 18-month grace period?
There are other alternatives that we're looking at that would fill that gap after 18 months if we didn't have the WASC accreditation, if other things happened. The board we had a board call this morning, and we're looking at other alternatives. There are other accreditors. We may not be able to have all the degree programs we have, but there are other accreditors. There's a possibility of being licensed by the state as an unaccredited institution. There are a number of things we can do to keep the education going forward. I think the biggest acknowledgement that we get, all of us, students, faculty, staff, about our degrees and the quality of them, are the placements that we have. If you take a look at our disclosure on the website, you'll see the high placement rate that we have last year. If you take a look at something called the college scorecard, you see how we exceed not only the national average, but a lot of schools, many schools, for placement. We are coming up to the end of the period within a month for placing students who graduated in the last academic year, 15-16. And I can tell you where the goal typically is to make sure that people are 70% placed for that academic year within the grace period, we're well over 80% right now. And it's, you know, we had the job fair last week, and the reception of the employers about the quality of the students, the quality of the work preparation that you've done here, the quality of your soft skills, because that's also one of the things that's very important to the employers, head and shoulders above what they see from other schools. So that's where, to me, that's where the rubber hits the road. That's the truth. Any other questions? All right. I'll let you get to lunch or your jobs or whatever you're doing for the rest of the day.